went live, so we'll do that.
The Big Mountain Ice Cold Lock. I'm gonna try and do it like I did last year too, in case we want to make any shorts. Like I'm gonna do
Okay.
Like pause a second after. College football is back, and we're back live on the Big Mountain.
Hey, welcome back to the mountain for another live episode. And my goodness, Steve, we have a ton of picks. We have several ice cold locks, and we're just going to be going for it. And I'm not sure if anybody can see us. We have a black screen. There we are. Okay, sorry, we're delayed.
Yeah, week one.
That's what I do.
We're back. We're getting back in the saddle. I think we gave everybody a little behind the scenes sneak peek.
I hope I didn't cuss.
Yeah, hopefully not before we got started. But I'm excited. Week one, we're finally have football again. Week 0 was like the little appetizer, just kind of gave us some just something to chew on. But we're back there. Week one, go Beavs. What is it? It's built not bought. So awesome shirt from JEH. I wanted to wear it again. For week one here, I think it's a time to celebrate college football being back. I'm excited to make some picks tonight.
Well, you got the Beavs and I got the Pokes.
Yeah.
We're going west tonight, even though you've got a ton of Big Ten picks that you got to make.
Poke the Beav.
I don't know about that. All right, so we are going to get into here. So how we're going to do it here is, thank you, Chris. I'm glad no F-bombs were detected. Because it easily could have happened.
Yes.
So what we're going to typically do, guys, is we're going to do our live shows every Wednesday. We're going to make all of our picks, and we're actually not going to keep it live. We're going to turn it off. We're going to make its own standalone episode that we'll then put back out later in the week, probably on Friday morning. So you guys if you're into the live episode, you get our live picks
Before everybody else
Wednesday evening, because we think we're special. But most importantly, as Chris will know, you get our locks before anybody else. Exactly. And as we all know, the lines move. So you got to get on it when we think they're good lines.
Yes. What you're talking about is the Big Mountain Ice Cold Locks.
That would be the one. Yeah, the Big Mountain Ice Cold Locks. Okay. 4 of them tonight, 3 from Steve, 1 from me. I took it a little easy, just not a whole lot of lines that I was interested in. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. And I'm only going to take them when I like them. But I do have 1 for this evening. So we're gonna get right into it. Let me do a quick hook so it makes sense when we do our episode.
Yeah, sounds good.
That works?
Yeah.
So, sorry guys, just hang with us here. Hey, welcome back to the mountain. We have picks here for week 1. We're going to get right into it. Steve's going to do all the Big Ten. I'm going to do all the Mountain West. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's rock and roll.
Okay, so rolling right into week 1 in the Big Ten. I got 19 picks tonight because I have all 18 Big Ten teams. Plus, I'm picking Florida State. So we're going to start right out the gate. Howard at Rutgers. And I'm going Rutgers to cover that 36.5. Rutgers, I think they're a good, solid Big Ten team.
Yep.
They're bringing a lot back from last year. I think they want to come out of the gate and make a statement. Howard's just not a good team. And I'm expecting Rutgers to be even better than last year. So I really feel like Rutgers is going to come out the gate, cover that 36.5.
Okay. That is a big number, but it's a Rutgers team that you like. And it's a Howard team they're playing a pretty decent Big Ten team.
Yes.
And that's what we're going to have here. I mean, it's hard because you have some of these really big lines. you don't know. I mean, we even question some of the teams that we follow with the Big Ten and the Mountain West. I have some huge questions in the Mountain West.
Yep.
And you got some of these big lines, and while you want to like it, you just you're very unsure here. And I kind of learned my lesson last year a little bit in these weeks 1, 2, 3, and once you get into 4, still out of conference, but you get a much better feel for some of the teams. So that's another reason why I only have one lock today. Maybe I'm being a bit of a I don't know, wussy.
Yeah, well, then that's what the thing is I think it's good for us to, let's remind the viewers, and that's how you can kind of take our picks are our picks. That's what we think are going to happen.
Yeah.
Our locks, our Big Mountain Ice Cold locks, those are the ones we feel really strongly about. We feel really confident. So you can take all the picks that you want, but those Big Mountain Ice Cold locks, that's really where you want to focus. That's where you and I focus on our own personal bets. But it's still fun picking all these games. Yeah,
and again, it's kind of like we're not the end-all, be-all. Certainly bettors already kind of have an inclination of which way they're leaning, and maybe you can hear from us, and it confirms what you're thinking or maybe doesn't confirm. But the Ice Cold locks are what we want to maybe focus on, because you nailed it last year. I was right around 500 with Ice Cold locks. You did much better than me. So anyway, we have people asking about drinks. Oktoberfest again. I'll be drinking Oktoberfest for the next 3 months probably, as long as you can still get it. I know Clint said he has his Big Mountain glass, which is fantastic with him. I'm glad it made it safe. Hopefully the other couple people will be getting theirs soon, Bill and Chris. And so anyway, Oktoberfest here, Probst, let's keep going.
I had to go with the good old H2O tonight to keep, because I have 19 picks. So
you Bobby Boucher'd it.
I got to keep strong.
You Bobby Boucher'd it. Waterboyed it up.
All right, so moving right along. Okay, UNC at Minnesota. Here's the thing. I'm not big on Minnesota this year. As you know, and anyone who's watched our preview, I look at that roster, I don't see a lot of talent. I don't know where their points come from. Their secondary was downright scary last year, and I don't know if it's really any better this year. You have a UNC team that's coming out and visiting Minnesota. UNC, I mean, just a decent ACC team, a little bit better than the middle of the pack. They've had really awesome quarterback play the last 4 or 5 years. I don't really have a good picture of what their quarterback play is going to be like this year. So this game really could. The line was 1.5, which makes a lot of sense. Sure. To me, this is a coin flip game. I see Mini as being down this year. I don't know. I don't think they have the talent level that UNC does. And so even though they're hosting it at home, I'm going to go with UNC minus 1.5. And I think this is just going to be kind of a sign of things to come for Mini and what I think is going to be a down year.
Okay. All right.
So moving forward,
pretty good teams there. UNC Mini. Yeah. That's a pretty good week 1 matchup. And you're going to have that. You're going to either have pretty decent really, really awesome out of conference matchups.
Right.
These big, high level, like super big games. You're gonna have these decent matchups, and then you're gonna have these like, holy crap, what the heck's going on? So and you're gonna be all over the place, and you're going back to the type of game. So what do we got?
Well, that's the next one. Eastern Illinois at Illinois. Illinois is a 27.5 point favorite, and Illinois is not really known as like the team that's going to score a bajillion points. But they are a much better team. I think they're going to want to come out of the gate here. I really think they're going to get some good quarterback play and just play well. Eastern Illinois is just not a good team. So I'm comfortable taking Illinois to cover the 27.5.
Okay. All right.
Next one. Did you have anything?
No, but I'm anxious for the next one.
Okay, so Florida Atlantic, Michigan State. We have absolutely no idea what to think about Michigan State this year. It's a total rebuild there. I look at their roster. They brought some players over from Oregon State or the OSU of the West Coast.
Right.
As some of our some fans want to remind us, Oregon State is OSU. Yes. So they brought over some players from there. They brought in some other transfers. I don't love their roster. And they're starting over the new coach, a new rebuild. I think they're going to be just kind of out of sorts week 1. So the game is at Michigan State, and I think they'll beat Florida Atlantic, but I don't know if they're going to beat them by 2 touchdowns. Yeah. So I'm taking Florida Atlantic plus the points, plus 13.5. Just because this isn't so much about Florida Atlantic as it is about Michigan State, and I just don't know what to expect, and I don't trust them to beat anybody by 2 touchdowns week 1.
I agree with your pick. I agree with your reasoning. And if JEH were on, he would be giving you a high five right now.
I can't. We're missing JEH. I wore the shirt for him tonight. Yeah, he'll pop in. Okay. All right. So next game, different scenario really. Western Michigan at Wisconsin. You know, I said I really think Wisconsin's going to be a better team this year. They may not end up with a better record because they actually have a pretty tough record, but I see them getting stuff together. I don't think Western Michigan is a very good team that's going to give them too much of a problem. So I'm comfortable taking it at Camp Randall, home for Wisconsin, 23.5. I know it's a big line, and they didn't score a lot of points this year, but I have good feelings about Wisconsin this year. I think they're a lot better team, and Western Michigan is just not a good team. So I'm comfortable taking Wisconsin minus 23.5.
Okay. All right. That's a decent spread.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I hope you're correct.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the reason I didn't lock it. If it was under 20, if it was 17 and a half, 18 and a half, 19 and a half, I may have even locked that. The 23 and a half, you know, that's just, it's a little rough, but I am willing to take that as a pick. Okay. UConn at Maryland. Now, I did say I thought Maryland was going to kind of be down this year, come back to earth a little more. Last year, I pegged Maryland to the T from day one. I said they would start out 5-0 and be the most overrated 5-0 team, crash back to earth, and that's exactly what happened. And I think Maryland's going to have a rough year. But let me tell you what, UConn is, to me, is probably in the bottom 5. Their football team, the bottom 5 of FBS. They are just a terrible team.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Maryland, even though I think they're in for a down year. I think their fans are going to get all excited because they're going to beat the heck out of a crappy team here at the beginning. So I'm taking Maryland to cover the 20.5 points.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I know, you've talked that you're down on Maryland this year.
Yep.
A little surprised that it's only 20.5, just under that 3 touchdown against a UConn team that does very much struggle.
Yeah.
It's just,
I think Talia was so much of Maryland's offense.
Yeah.
It's hard to see where the points are going to come from.
Yeah.
It's
still a solid Big Ten.
It is.
Maybe not as solid as they were last year. Still a solid Big Ten team against a UConn team. Okay.
Last year's Maryland, if you had Talia on this team, I think Maryland would be over 30-point favorites.
Yeah.
And so,
okay.
So that's where we're at. Okay.
Well, Jerry gives you a proxy high five for the Michigan State pick. It doesn't have to be a proxy, Jerry. You can be a straight up one. You don't have to be proxy for JEH. It's all good.
Jerry, I'm a Beaver believer, so.
I would have never guessed with your shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so moving forward. Oh, great. So first, for our viewers that don't know, I am a Penn State fan. I'm a admitted Penn State homer. However, if you watched our picks last year, both of us really tried to be objective.
Yeah.
We're making picks here. We're betting. We're putting our own money on the line, and we're trying to give you our best picks. So even though I am a Penn State homer, I try and look at all these games objectively. There were times last year I didn't bet on Penn State because I didn't trust them, to cover the spread or whatever. So Penn State is traveling into West Virginia. Last year, it was a close game for maybe the first half. And then Penn State just totally pulled away. Their strategy last year was they were going to load up on the box and stop Nick Singleton, Katron Allen.
Yeah.
And they had some success doing that. But Drew Aller just absolutely killed them. He came out of the gate looking like a Heisman Trophy winner. Had maybe his best game of the season.
Yeah.
I think he had 370 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns. Completed around 65-70% of his passes. He was just all over them. West Virginia brought in a lot of new players. I think they brought in some linebackers. They have a really good, solid quarterback. They have a good running back duo. 2 guys that can run the ball. I think their offensive line is going to be okay. But I just think Penn State has too much talent. I think we may see a similar game where it's close early. Penn State's only 8.5-point favorite now. I think really early, I think the line was 10.5, 11.5, something like that. Over on the other side of 10. Which that line there, it made me a little bit more nervous. I probably still would have taken it. I do like Penn State probably to win by about 2 touchdowns, about 14 points. So I'm going with Penn State minus 8.5 to cover the 8.5, and I'm making that a Big Mountain ice cold lock.
There it is. First week 1 ice cold lock. We've had a few blocks on the over-unders for wins, so it's not our first one of the season, but our first one for a game, Penn State 8.5 over West Virginia. I got a couple thoughts.
Okay.
Thought number 1. While you are a PSU homer, I think it, and you're very careful to not let that, kind of change your view on the lines and the picks. you do have probably the most knowledge about Penn State. So you'll probably see a lot of locks with Steve on Penn State. Well, maybe not a lot, but maybe more than any other team.
Right.
The most team, because Steve has the most knowledge about Penn State. And when he sees a team that they're playing on a line that he likes, he's going to let you know to ice cold lock Penn State. And I would say, listen to Steve, because he is tuned into Penn State more than any other school. And I'm not going to double lock it or anything like that. I just want to let you guys know that I'd give put a lot of weight on any sort of lock that Steve throws out with Penn State. Now that I said that, I want to talk about the game.
Yes.
First of all, probably of your slate of 9 games, the best week 1 game you're picking.
Conference game, yes.
Fantastic.
Sure. Yeah.
I love last year and this year that they're doing it. And I think it's going to be a great game. I'll be honest with you, though, Steve. Well, I just gave you a lot of praise for the lock.
Yes.
I'm actually a little surprised you locked it because I think this will be a good, close, tight game. And maybe 10 points type of game. I get that. Some people are very high on WVU this year. I'm really anxious to see the offense for Penn State. Forget the line and for Penn State and where they want to be. I want to see what happens in this game with Aller and the OC and what this offense is going to look like, because WVU is not a team to sneeze at. So there's a lot to like about this game. It's a great out-of-conference game. It's going to be a close game. It's everything I just said. And yes, I will be trying to watch this game as much as I can. I'm going to be in Jersey this weekend with my son playing hockey.
Yeah.
But I'm going to watch as much football as I can. I'll be able to see the beginning of this game.
Well, this is the big noon game on Fox.
Big noon game,
premier game. It's getting the big time slot on Fox this weekend. I agree with you. It's a great game. And honestly, I have a lot of respect for West Virginia. Again, I really like their quarterback. I love their running back combination. Here's the thing. Some of it, one part is Penn State just has a lot more talent, I think, and that's not a knock on West Virginia. When you look at the players they bring in and the way they develop them, they just have more talent. The second thing is it's a matchup thing. West Virginia wants to come in; they want to run the ball. Well, Penn State's defense, that's the strength of their defense, is their defensive line, and they want to stop the run, which to me is Penn State's strength. The two-headed monster, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, they were able to not really stop the run last year, but kind of box it in, slow it down, or whatever. But they had to commit so many resources to it, it made them so much more vulnerable. So to me, it's kind of a matchup thing. Now, I will say, I agree with you regarding Penn State and my focus on there. Some other teams that I'm following closely this year that we've talked about. Rutgers, I'm following them very closely. Nebraska, Indiana. And Iowa. Okay. So that gets me to our next pick here.
Oh my goodness.
These are teams I'm following really closely.
Okay.
I've picked them all to have good seasons. Right. I've really dug into training camp reports and just looking at everything I can. And so our next pick here, moving forward, Illinois State at Iowa. Iowa is a 22.5-point favorite at home. I love that line all day and twice on Saturday. All day, every day, twice on Saturday. It's a fantastic line. I think, again, this is a team who won 10 games last year with no offense whatsoever.
Right.
They have a new offensive coordinator. Just with a decent offense, a slightly below average offense. Right. I really like Iowa this year. Illinois State, they're just not a good team. Iowa's at home. It's hard to go in there and win. So I'm taking Iowa minus 22.5 as another Big Mountain ice cold lock.
2 in a row.
Boom.
Boom. So you're saying that they don't want to be scraping the bottom of the barrel with their offense this year.
Exactly.
In FBS. Let's have somewhat of an offense. And, at 22.5 against Illinois State, that lock, while I was a little about your Penn State lock, that one, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Like, I am going heavy on Iowa.
And here's the thing, even if Iowa's offense doesn't score, because here's the thing, people look at the line 22.5. How many times did Iowa's offense score more than 22 points last year?
Right.
Not very many, but however, their defense and their special teams, really good. Their defense and special teams against a team like Illinois State could score at least half of those points.
Sure.
So where the offense doesn't need to score so many. So Again, Iowa minus 22.5 for that Big Mountain Ice Cold loss.
So real quick, we have a question about over-unders. Okay. And I will say, I like picking over-unders. We don't do it every game. We only do it a few times. And Steve, you don't do it a whole lot. I love to pick a few over-unders. Mm-hmm. I have one here today, and I may have to throw an audible because, I didn't make a slide for it.
Yeah.
But I do have one later, Chris, and I always like throwing a few over-unders out. I'm an over kind of guy. When I see a line where I'm like, ooh, these are two good offenses with two questionable defenses, I like to go for overs. I'm not much of an under guy. Although Iowa are hitting unders. You were all over that last year. I'm anxious to see if you get on a train there with either them or another team with some unders.
So last year, well, first of all, I will pick every Big Ten game against the spread. Every single game I'll pick against the spread, but I may throw some over under picks in as well. Last year you did some shorts. On game day, Friday to Saturday mornings.
Game day picks.
And you did some over-unders there, which I loved it. And I threw in some over-unders last year. I think Iowa quite a few times, and they were hitting. Just no matter what the line was, like we didn't have to look what the line was, and it was under last year, and it was hitting for Iowa. So
they couldn't get it low enough.
No, they just
couldn't.
It was crazy.
They were trying, and they couldn't get it low enough.
Exactly. Yeah. So we will throw some of those in there, but for me, I'm going to pick every single I've committed to this year. Every single Big Ten game, every single Florida State game, I will give you a pick against the spread.
Awesome. Okay. So you're almost halfway here.
Yeah.
Who's next?
All right. So next one, Indiana State at Purdue. Here's the thing. Purdue, I think, is going to struggle again this year. Purdue's another team, almost like a Wisconsin, but not quite as good, where I think they could be improved a little bit. So they could be a little bit better of a team, but have even worse record than last year. I picked them, I think, only to win 4 games.
Okay.
This is going to be one of the 4, and I think it'll be big.
Okay.
Indiana State, just not a good team at all. It's at Purdue. I think Purdue knows, like, they have to come out and they have to win this game. They have to get their offense on track if they have any hope this season. So it's a huge line. I would never lock this. I would never lock a line that big, 33.5. I don't love the line. I don't know if I'll even bet it, but I am going to pick Purdue to cover 33.5.
Yeah, when you get up into the 30s, I'll tell you, honestly, I'm gonna talk about Hawaii right now. I'm gonna talk about them later. But, Hawaii played Delaware State. Mm-hmm. I mean, they should have just 50-pointed that team.
Right.
And they're tied in the third quarter.
Yeah.
I won't get into some of that until I get to the Hawaii pick for this week. But, when you have those big lines, the team might just, for whatever, be off or, they're just not looking to run up the score for some reason. Now, some teams, they don't give a crap. It can be, I'll say Oregon Ducks. Yeah. They don't care if it's 78-3. Yeah. They're going to score their freaking points. But in some of these things, you don't know what you're going to get out of them. They don't want to get injured in the first week, for crying out loud. Yep. So you're gambling a little bit with some of this stuff.
Yeah, and we saw.
Shocking. We're talking about gambling, but pun intended, I guess.
Well, we saw last year with teams like Ohio State and even Penn State in some games where they get out to a big lead and then they pull their starters. So when they pull their starters, they're covering the spread,
right?
And then a second, maybe third team defense gives up some points later, and you lose. So any lines over 30, I don't know. I've very rarely have I actually bet a line over 30.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving forward next, I think you're gonna like this one. So Florida International at Indiana. Okay. Florida International, not a good team. Indiana with Kurt Signetti. They brought over Rourke.
Right.
We talked about them before. They're kind of like it's like someone tried to make a G5 all-star team and put them in the Big Ten. I think I'm really high on Indiana this year. I think they're going to do really well. Again, I think they're going to be ready to come out of the gate. They're at home. They want to show off. They want to get Rourke, into this offense and going. Yep. The line is 21.5. So I'm taking Indiana to cover 21.5, and I'm making that another Big Mountain ice cold lock.
Jeepers creepers, that's 3 out of 4 here.
There you go.
You were running hard, and I love that ice cold lock. I know it's 21.5, so you're over the 3 touchdowns. But my goodness, I think the Indiana offense is going to be really, really good this year. They're playing FIU. I'm surprised it's low 20s.
Yeah.
I kind of, you don't have to tell me, but I kind of wonder how far up it would have gone. But you were like, first of all, I'm not going to lock it, and then I'm not going to take Indiana. I think you got several points you could give there, and you'd still be very comfortable with that line.
I think I'd be comfortable up to probably 27.5.
Yeah.
I think I still would.
4 touchdowns.
So here's the thing. You remember last year we talked about Purdue, and I said that Vegas was overestimating Purdue early in the year because of the previous year's performance.
Yes, I was going to bring it up.
Well, Indiana this year, I think, is the exact opposite. They're coming off a bad season. They fired their coach. They bring in Signetti. They bring in one of the best transfer quarterbacks in the country, I believe. A lot of other good players. They are going to be underestimated. And I think we'll see the first 3, 4, 5 weeks of this season where the lines on them will be lower than they should.
Yep.
So I love Indiana all day. That 21 to cover that 21.5.
And I think you nailed it. I think that, we talked a little bit ago about you were kind of on Michigan doing what they did last year, but you were really on Purdue being overachieved, or the lines were higher than what they really were because of the previous year. I think you're nailing it here with Indiana. We'll see how long it takes for Vegas to maybe catch up. I totally agree with you. It was per your Purdue last year where you were betting against them, and you're going to be betting for Indiana. I agree. I love this lock. The Iowa and Indiana picks here, Steve. I'm totally with you on those.
Love them.
All right, where are we going next?
So the next game, Akron at Ohio State. Here's the deal. And I love to say, here's the deal.
I was gonna mention that to you, but I'll just let you know.
Here's the deal on this game.
Here's the deal.
If they're Akron's going on OSU. Akron is a bad football team. Okay, they're I don't know if UConn and Akron played, they probably would come to a 0-0 tie, and the refs would just tell them that you both lose. So they're a bad football team, and they're going into Ohio State. They're going into the shoe. If Ohio State wanted to, they could beat Akron 100-0.
Yes.
Okay. But here's the thing. I think that again, yes.
Okay.
Ohio State's going to get out to a big lead. They have all this talent. It's going to be we have a longer season now. We have with a 12-team playoff.
Good point.
Some of these really talented teams, I think they are going to go to their bench much quicker than ever before.
Yeah.
And I see Ohio State doing that. And by the time we get in the second half, we're going to have second stringers, third stringers, walk-ons playing.
Waterboy?
Could be, yes. Even Rudy from Notre Dame might have one more year of eligibility.
Throw his ass out there.
Come out there and block a field goal, whatever. So anyways, the line is 48.5. And again, Ohio State could double that line if they wanted to, if they really wanted to squeeze every drop of blood out of the Akron Zips that they wanted to. But I just see them taking their foot off the gas in the second half. So I'm taking Akron plus the 48.5. I don't know that I'll actually bet this game.
Yeah.
But it's just I think they'll take their foot off the gas.
But when it's that high, it's just like
it's stupid.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah.
So
okay,
you've had some real wing dingers with spreads here. Let me tell you. All right, we're going here. We're on game 12.
Game 12. Yeah, here. UTEP, University of Texas El Paso, is traveling to Lincoln, Nebraska. Nebraska is another team I'm following very closely. I think that they will be. I think they're going to be an improved team. They were not a bad team last year.
Yeah.
They had awful quarterback play. I think they're going to, even with a first-year freshman rookie quarterback, I think they're going to have better offensive production out of that position.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Rule, his history of success in that second year, he's really been able to rebuild this roster. And to me, he's earned that respect and that benefit of the doubt of what he's done in college football already. I like Nebraska this year. I'm digging into that team. I'm taking the over on them and their wins.
Yep.
And so the line is 27.5. I went ahead and I just picked Nebraska to cover the 27.5. This game is almost exactly like what we talked about the Indiana game, where I locked it at 21.5, but I said I might go up to 27.5.
Right.
I'm not quite ready to lock Nebraska at 27.5.
Okay.
If it got under 24, I think 23.5, I would lock it. But for right now, I'm just going to pick Nebraska to cover 27.
Yeah, I don't see that much movement probably happening. But I was going to ask, where were you kind of at feeling your lock there? Okay. All right.
Okay, so Miami at Northwestern. Here's the thing: Northwestern, they overachieved last year. They did a great job. Quarterback or their coach was the coach of the year. Fantastic. I think they're going to struggle this year to win games. We'll see. They might overachieve again, and God bless them if they do. Miami of Ohio, I think, is going to be in that conversation as one of the best G5 teams, possibly if they could, if they could beat a Big Ten team, run the table in the MAC, they could be in that conversation for a playoff spot potentially, and maybe a top 25 ranking. So I'm kind of going out on a limb here. They're playing at Northwestern in the little like temporary high school stadium that they built next to the lake.
Right.
There's not going to be very much home field advantage where it's September, the weather is beautiful.
Right.
And I honestly, I think Miami of Ohio, they are confident. They're a good team. They're confident. They have serious goals this year, and I think they're going to come in, and they're actually favored by 2.5. And I'm going to go ahead and take. Or no, they're sorry. They're getting 2.5.
Yeah.
I think they're going to pull the upset outright.
Yeah.
So I would actually maybe look at the money line for that game, but I'm definitely taking Miami plus 2.5. I was surprised that they weren't favored. I thought they might be favored by 2 or 3 points. So I'm taking Miami plus the points, and probably the morning of the game, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the money line. I might throw some on there as well.
Yeah, and Steven knows the MAC well. He's telling you that's a very dangerous team there with Ohio or Miami of Ohio. I'm sorry, and he's an Ohio fan. That's why I got confused.
Bobcat Corner.
That's right, Bobcat Corner. But yeah, the Redhawks here with Miami, very strong team. You know, I want to like Northwestern because I got on them early.
Yep.
And here's what I'm going to say to you, Steve.
Yeah.
If Northwestern wins the game, you're going to wear your Northwestern hat next.
Okay,
next
I'll do
week.
it. If Northwestern wins the game, then next
If they
week
win the,
I'll
not
wear
the, I mean, it's a 2.5 point spread. It's not that big
and
of a deal.
Favorites. They're favorites.
They are, but if they win the game, Northwestern hat.
I'll wear it next week.
Sweet. Okay. All right. So we've got your next two picks.
Yeah.
Are also picks that I'm going to be making because we have Big Ten teams playing Mountain West teams.
Yeah.
That is the next two picks. So why don't you go on to UCLA traveling out to Hawaii?
Okay, so like you said, UCLA traveling to Hawaii. UCLA is likely the better team. They're probably more talented. They're a Big Ten team. You know, even though they're starting over, they're rebuilding. They have some talent on that roster. They're probably just the better team. But they're traveling to Hawaii. I think Hawaii has a decent offense. I don't know what to expect from UCLA's offense, and I think it's going to take a while for them to really get on track. This is the first game of the season. They're going to Hawaii. We've seen how some teams have been dysfunctional out there. So I think UCLA wins this game, and maybe kind of comfortably, but I don't, where the line at is at 14.5. I'm just not ready to say UCLA is definitely going to cover 2 touchdowns against Hawaii traveling there. So I'm taking Hawaii plus the points, plus 14.5. Not really because I have that much faith in Hawaii. I don't have faith in either of these teams to be that great. I mean, I could see UCLA winning a 13-3 game.
Yeah.
If Hawaii's offense can't, get going. But I think they might get going, which could keep the score closer. So I don't even know if I'll bet this game, but I'm taking Hawaii to plus 14.5 points. I'll be interested to see when you pick it.
I'm gonna zip my lip until I get to it, and you guys can wait for another 15 minutes or whatever it takes, and I'll tell you what I think about that game.
Yeah. Okay.
So the next game,
Yes.
Michigan, Fresno State. Before you pick the game, I just want to tell everybody we have a preview for that game coming out tomorrow. We had some friends from what was it? Beware of Bulldogs.
Okay.
Beware of Bulldogs podcast. Caleb Pletz came on. And he did a preview episode with Steve and myself on the Michigan-Fresno game. Check it out tomorrow. It's about 25-ish minutes. Our goal is, hopefully, is to pick a game every week, and we're going to do a preview video for that game. And this week is the Fresno-Michigan game. I'm going to just let everyone know we're going to have Jim back for the BYU versus Wyoming game. We will be doing a preview for that game. He's already told me he's happy to come back and help us. So
Love it.
We'll have to figure out week 2, but that will be coming up here shortly as well. We're going to do at least one preview. We'll see what the schedules are like. But with that, okay, let's get to it. Fresno at Michigan.
Okay, Fresno at Michigan. Fresno State, the Bulldogs. To me, again, another team where they might be in the competition to be that G5 representative in the college football playoff. I think very solid Mountain West team. I'm high on Fresno State this year, and they're traveling to the Big House and playing a Michigan team. You would think, okay, the defending national champions.
Yep.
I still think Michigan's defense is going to be very strong.
Yep.
They probably, I think they will be able to run the ball on Fresno.
Yep.
And that's the thing is I think Michigan's lines up front on the both offense and defense are going to be able probably to manhandle Fresno a little bit. So I think it's going to be hard for Fresno to win the game. However, Michigan, the state they're in, the just kind of the turmoil of losing your head coach, losing your quarterback. They started slow out of the gate last year when Jim Harbaugh was suspended, and we rode that train where we were picking against them early in the season. Then Harbaugh gets back, and you could see the worm turn. I think that's the phrase you used last year. We could see that worm turn with Michigan where they finally kind of got it all together.
Yeah.
I think they're going to start slow again this year. I think they win this game, but I absolutely love taking Fresno plus 20.5. I think Fresno will hang around and stay in, and I think I see Michigan winning this game by probably about 2 touchdowns, somewhere in the 10 to 17 range. But I love Fresno getting 20.5 points. I'm just going to take that. I would love it even more if we could get on the other side of 23.
Well, it's been 23.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
all right.
yes. But I might be willing to lock it if we got to like 24.5 or something like that. But I'm just going to go ahead and pick, and I've already put my money on this.
Yeah.
Fresno State taking the points, 20.5.
We did several picks weeks ago, and this was one that you took at 20.5, and it's still there. It has hovered between 20.5, and it's gotten up to 21.5 a few times. So, we'll let it up to you guys if you want to maybe wait and see if it goes back to 21.5. My guess is as we get closer to the game, if anything, it may go down to 19. I'll be honest with you. I think the money's going to go to Fresno here, in my opinion. So I think you should take the 20.5, and maybe if you see it go up to 21, throw a little bit more money on it. But because it is that 3 touchdowns, they're right there at that 3 touchdown mark. Maybe I've given a little bit away because I'm loving on it a little bit. But so anyway, you got a couple left here, Steve. Where are we going next?
Yeah. So Idaho and Oregon. Here's the line is 44.5. It's just I'm not betting this game. Okay.
Yeah.
Oregon again, some things similar to the Ohio State game. Some things a little different. If Oregon wanted to beat Idaho by 100 points, and like that was their goal, I think maybe they could do it. Okay. They're a much better team. They can do what they want with them. And 44.5. I mean, it is a lot of points. I think so. I'm not going to bet this game because I don't like the line's that big. And, who knows when they're going to take out their starters.
Right.
We talked about how it's going to be probably a longer season for some of these top teams. Now, I will say, I think possibly Oregon is in a slightly different position than Ohio State. They're coming into the Big Ten. They want to, establish like, hey, we're the we're the kings here. We're the guys. We're the top dogs. So I see them maybe taking their foot off the gas a little later. And the line is a little smaller, 44.5 compared to 48.5.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and take Oregon to cover 44.5. I don't love it. I don't know if I'll bet it. I would love it maybe down at like a 37.5, 38.5.
About a touchdown less.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and pick Oregon to cover 44.5.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, if there's one team that'll run the score, at least historically, it's freaking Oregon.
Yes,
so,
yes.
And Idaho's not a bad team, but I'll tell you, when you go up against the Ducks, when they smell blood in the water, those Ducks, they grow fangs and they just go for it.
And I do want to point out another difference that I think between Oregon and Ohio State this year, because I think those two teams are the class of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But I think they may have slightly different strategies for this season of what they want to accomplish. I think Ohio State wants to be that physical team. They want to do to teams what Michigan has done to them those last 3 years. They bring in more of a running quarterback. They bring in another stud running back.
Yeah.
I think they want to go and be physical, which just leads to more of a low-scoring game. Oregon just wants to score a bajillion points and beat your ass.
Yeah.
So I think maybe they may have different strategies that causes them to take their foot off the gas at different times.
Right, for sure. Well, Chris likes the over on this game.
Yeah, I like it.
You gotta love overs with, like I said, you gotta like the over with Oregon usually.
Yeah.
They'll hit some stinkers every so often, again historically, but they like to go. So, all right, couple left. What do you got?
Okay, Weber State at Washington. The line is 26.5, and I do think Washington is going to struggle in the Big Ten this year a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, they were a fantastic team last year. They lost so much talent. I think it's going to be too hard for them to compete in the Big Ten this year. However, I do like their coach. They still have some good talent on that roster.
Yeah.
I think they're going to come out of the gate and really want to show that they're still a decent team this year. Everyone's forgetting about them. Everyone's picking against them. And I like them to easily cover this 26.5. They're just a much better team than Weber State or Weber State, however you pronounce it. So
I always said Weber, but I don't freaking know.
So I don't know if I'm going to bet this game, but I'm picking Washington to cover the 26.5.
Okay, well, I'm anxious for your last two.
Okay.
Because we've got LSU at USC in Vegas, if you call it at USC. And then you've got BC at Florida State. And everybody knows what happens in Dublin. So I am very anxious for these last two picks, Steve.
So here's the thing. We talked about Penn State and West Virginia being maybe the cream of the crop of the out-of-conference games. I actually, which I kind of agree with, but I actually think it's this game. LSU at USC.
It's a biggie.
It is. And it's two teams. They both have a lot to prove. LSU, their defense was absolutely awful the last couple years, really. They had a Heisman Trophy quality quarterback and just could not really compete in the SEC last year. We've talked about USC ad nauseum. Like they're just, they had all the horses, all the stalls were full of, thoroughbred horses. Yeah. They had a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. Their defense was just awful. They couldn't put it together to compete in the pack last year. And, so you think maybe they're going to struggle this year coming in the Big Ten. I think a lot of people do. I have this team, this game very, very close. Like you said, USC is the home team. It's in Vegas. It's LSU is a 4.5-point favorite. Yeah. So I have this game very close. I have it being a coin flip. I think USC is going to be a little bit better than people think. Bringing in their defensive coordinator over from UCLA, I think he could be a major X factor. And again, kind of like Iowa, they don't have to jump into the top 10 in defense. They were just so bad on defense last year. If they can go up to average, just kind of middle of the pack defense, that could be a huge thing for them. And I think they can do that. I'm taking USC plus 4.5. I have this game as a coin flip. So basically, if it was the other way, if the other team was 3.5 4-point favorites, I probably would go that way. So I'm taking USC plus the points. Basically, I just like the points in this game because I have it as a coin flip.
I'm with you usually, but when I disagree, I tell you I disagree, and you're not going to be surprised because I like to poo all over the Trojans.
It's usually about USC.
I disagree. Yeah. I would be going LSU. I think they're the touchdown favorite here. So I would be taking LSU. There's nothing about me that trusts USC whatsoever, and LSU's a very good team. So I get you on the coin flip. Yeah. And if you can get 4.5, that's a decent number of points on a game that you think is going to be close. I still would be taking LSU here, but that's me.
So Clint has LSU by 3 over USC, which if that's what happens,
it's a winner.
Cash that bet. That's that winner. And Kevin mentions USC loaded up on defense. They did for the second year in a row. They loaded up on talent, which is great. But I think that coordinator, the coaching is actually the bigger deal, and I think it's going to make a big difference.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm going USC plus 4.5. I really wouldn't be surprised if either team wins.
Well, last year we liked to crap all over Iowa's offense.
Yes.
We also liked to crap all over USC's defense.
And we were right.
We were right. Yeah. But they need to have a better defense this year.
And I think both teams will. I think Iowa will be at least marginally improved on offense, and USC will be at least marginally improved on defense.
All right, so you're through the Big Ten.
Yes.
Now you get your
bonus pick.
Yeah. The good old Florida State Seminoles here. Where are we going?
So here's the thing. BC at Florida State. We just came off of the debacle in Dublin, okay? So a lot of...
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a debacle.
Well, that's what Florida State fans are calling it. The debacle in Dublin. Okay. So it's a named game now.
Is it really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and we got Boston College, who has not been a good team the last few years. However, I don't know if you know this. I think you know this. Do you know who their new coach is?
Bill O'Brien.
Okay. It is Bill O'Brien of the magnificent butt chin Bill O'Brien.
That's correct.
Billy O'Brien coming in there, just a fantastic coach. I mean, what he did at Penn State with a roster that was decimated by sanctions, I think was absolutely amazing. I think he'll have Boston College playing a lot better than they have before. Florida State will win this game. Okay, Florida State is the better team, and I don't think Boston College is probably not as good, especially on the lines, as Georgia Tech was. So I think Florida State wins this game. However, I think they're still going to struggle. I think they're still working through some things with DJU. There was points where he was good in that game.
Yeah.
He hit a big fourth down conversion, but there were other points where there were throws that he could have made, and he just didn't. He didn't either attempt them or he missed them. Their defense is still a big open question. I feel confident Florida State will win. The line is 17.5. Yeah, I do. I feel
I do too. I'm kidding.
Okay, I feel very confident Florida State will win, but I think Bill O'Brien of the Magnificent Butt Chin will have the Boston College Eagles playing pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and take Boston College plus the points, plus 17.5. But I do want to say, I'm still high on Florida State this year.
Sure, I am too.
They have all of their goals in front of them. I think they have a talented team. The thing is, we talked about Mike Norvell being the king of the transfer portal. They brought in a lot of players in the portal yet again this year. It worked out great last year.
Yeah.
This year, I think it may just take some time to figure out who are the dudes that are going to show up in games.
Yeah.
So you may see some shuffling of the roster. I'm still big on Florida State this year. I think they have a great chance to both win the ACC still and make the college football playoff. I think they win this game, but I'm just going to go a lot of points, 17.5, and with the Florida State team, I think is still figuring things out.
I agree.
Going Boston College plus 17.5 points.
And at 17.5, I fully agree with that pick. And it's more so, to me, it's more so the offense. Can they put up the points
Absolutely.
to cover a 17.5 spread against a BC team that is not a bad team? And so, I'm with you on that. I just, until we can see it from that offense, any sort of larger spread, and I consider 17 in this game to be a fairly large spread, I think it's a safer pick to take the points with BC, especially after the debacle in Dublin.
Yes, exactly. Name the game. So that's all my Big Ten picks, my Florida State picks. I'm done. I cannot wait to hear what you have coming up in the Mountain West and our two games that we both picked. I'm interested to see how it went for you.
So I have one game that we agree and one game that I disagree. We'll get to them.
Okay.
I want to real quick say something to the commenters. Tyler, welcome, sir. He's a Wisconsinite that has moved out to Colorado. I'm a bit jealous. I love the state of Colorado.
Yeah.
But he's adopting Wyoming at his other 5 school to cheer for. Great school to cheer for. I mean, not that I'm biased in any way, but welcome to the channel. And he appreciates, what we've been doing here for the Mountain West and our coverage and everything like that. And then Tyler Nelson says, if Florida State loses to Boston College, there's going to be panicking in Florida State. I think it will be much worse than panicking.
Oh,
they go cray-cray down there.
Yeah.
You read some of those message boards. You think they're going to... I can't say what I'm thinking.
They'll be on the warpath.
There you go. They'll be on the warpath. So, all right, let's get to the mountain. Okay,
well, real quick, Clint is going to stop in Vegas to hit up those 4 Stone Cold locks, or ice cold, Big Mountain ice cold locks. He called them Stone Cold locks and messed me up when I was reading it. But
you said that the other day.
I did say it once, yeah. So
Bad
Clint,
boy.
you're not hitting up the Stone Cold locks. You're hitting up the Big Mountain ice cold locks. So make sure you tell the person at the sports book that's what you're doing.
You know what's really funny? We'll tell the quick story.
Yeah.
When we started this podcast, first episode, we called them Stone Cold locks. And we were told other people use Stone Cold locks.
Yes.
So we had to switch it.
Yes.
Now we're the Ice Cold lock.
Which
Big
I
Mountain
like
Ice Cold
better.
locks.
I mean, the
it
sound
makes more
effect,
sense
the
for
graphic
the
is awesome.
for the Big Mountain.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, all right, Mountain West. Here we go. First one, Thursday night game. We've got Sacramento State versus a team that I am down on, the San Jose State Spartans.
Yeah.
3.5. I am going to take the points here with Sacramento State getting 3.5 points. Yes, it's in San Jose State. I just have too many questions with this team. There's not a lot coming out of camp. I've been trying to find. They have yet to name a quarterback. Ken has said he wants to keep everybody in suspense. He doesn't want anyone to know. Like they're holding this big secret. You know the whole saying where if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with San Jose State right now. I don't mean to crap on the Spartans. I just don't like the vibes coming out of this team. And Sacramento State, they are ranked 10th in FCS.
Yes.
We saw what Montana State did to New Mexico, and I know everybody says, well, they came back in the end. I watched the entire game. Montana State was the better team. They ran the ball at will, just like I said they would. The reason it was close was because of 2 scoop and scores for New Mexico. And I'm not taking it away from New Mexico. They did look better than I anticipated.
Yes.
I put a lot onto Bronco Mendenhall for that. But I have to take Sacramento State here. They're too good of a FCS school against a school that I just have way too many questions about coming into week 1. And remember last year, Sacramento State beat Stanford.
Yes.
Now, I get it. It was a comeback. It was call it a fluke or whatever you want. They've got the talent. They have a dual threat quarterback, very veteran group. I'm sorry, Spartans. I've got to take the points in Sacramento State.
I love it. I love the pick. I love getting the points there. And I honestly, I think that's another one to maybe kind of look at the money line and see what it does. See if you like it. Maybe Saturday morning or something.
For sure. Yeah. I agree. I mean, the fact they're getting over a field goal in this game.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm not going to lock it because I don't want to be that mean to the Spartans, and I'm not that confident necessarily because it is a close line here. But I'm seeing. I agree. Josh says Sacramento State's going to be chomping at the bit to get one over on San Jose. Absolutely. Anytime you get this close FCS, FBS type of matchup, that FCS school absolutely wants to beat any FBS.
And their locations in California.
For sure.
And it's crazy because San Jose State last year they were a tiebreaker away from being in the Mountain West Championship game.
Were.
And now they're a couple rule changes away from being in a relegation game with Sacramento State. So.
You're a funny guy. So you had to bring that up again. You brought it up last week. All right, so we're moving on. Going to the next one. Colorado State versus Texas. I struggled with this one.
Yeah.
But I have to take the points. Over 30. We're at 31.5 here for the Rams. I do think they have a good offense. They have a really good offense. And I'm a little, it goes back to kind of what you said with the Ohio State game. First of all, Texas, nobody's going to want to get injured here. And again, it's not a knock on the Rams here, but nobody's going to want to get injured. They want to be playing whatever it is, 16, 17 games this year. And I think the 31 is covered in the second half.
Yes.
It's not that Texas could win by 31.
Right.
It's that they don't need to win by 31 or 32. And the Rams have a decent enough offense that they're going to be able to put up some points.
Yes.
So I was back and forth on this, but the fact that the Texas just doesn't have to, they don't have to go balls to the wall. They've got Michigan in week 2. So why play your starters at the second half of the game when you need them ready to go for Michigan the second week? The reason I'm taking the Rams here is for the intangibles of that game, and it's too many points to not take the points with the Rams.
Totally agree. And so, Bill says Texas by 40, and I get it because Texas is 40 to 50 points better than Colorado State.
Yeah.
However, like you mentioned, their offense in the second half, when Texas is going to be pulling their starters, they can score a couple quick touchdowns in junk time if they keep their offense in. So I'm with you. And like you said, Texas the next week traveling into the big house, and Texas has big aspirations this year. I'm sure they see themselves as possible SEC champion, top 4 seed in the college football playoff. They got bigger fish to fry than those Rocky Mountain oysters in Colorado State.
Yeah, it's just too many points. It's just too many points for me. And our chat here is a little bit split on this. Some think they Texas by 40. We got one John saying Colorado State bet the farm. So yeah, we're a little bit back and forth. I see some Texas by in the mid 20s here, and that's where I'm at. I could see 24-28, a 4 touchdown type of deal. 31's too many points.
Clint must have said something really salacious because he just retracted the whole message.
Maybe it was a misspelling.
Oh, maybe.
All right, the next game. This one, there's a few games that you mentioned games that you probably really wouldn't bet.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would bet this game, but I'm going to pick it. We're committed to picking all Big Ten and Mountain West games. We're going to pick them all. This one I am hesitant on, and I'll tell you why. Merrimack versus Air Force. The line is 28.5 here. I'm going to take Merrimack getting 28.5, and here's the reason why. Again, very tough for me. It's a lot of points.
Yeah.
Air Force only beat a spread of 28 or more twice last year.
Yep.
And in my opinion, last year's team was better than this year's team.
Yep.
So much turnover. I could be proven wrong. If there's any team and coach that will prove me wrong, it's Air Force and Calhoun.
Right.
I get that. But without knowing what they're going to be, without Larrier as the quarterback, they lost their massive running backs. They lost so much last year. And yes, it's usually a restock, not a rebuild. And yes, it's Merrimack.
Yeah.
I just got to take the points because Air Force isn't known as blowing teams out. Right? They're going to run the ball. They're going to run clock. They don't play it like Oregon, who's throwing the ball to score 60 points a game. So that's the reason why I am taking Merrimack. It's just too many points, over 4 touchdowns against an Air Force team that I'm going to wait and see on right now. That might surprise you. Again, I'm not betting this game, but that's going to be my pick.
I have one thought on this game.
Oh gosh.
I cannot believe there's even a line for this game, considering last year that we had trouble finding lines on some games. And Merrimack with Air Force, I'm just surprised there's a line. So I'll just defer to your judgment.
Okay, there is a game that I don't have a line on.
Okay.
And just to remind everybody, we use FanDuel lines.
Yes.
So everything that you're hearing from us, and we check these a few hours before we go live. These were good around 5 o'clock today. Lines, as you guys know, change. But we use FanDuel. We usually find they have better lines the way we like to bet than what maybe DraftKings or some other ones have. So we stick with FanDuel lines here. Next one, a big one for me. I got several big games. This is going to be the biggest one I'm picking right now. Boise State traveling south to Georgia Southern. People know me. I'm taking Boise State at minus 12.5. They are the favorites. Georgia Southern last year, and of course last year doesn't mean this year, but Georgia Southern last year really struggled with high-power offenses.
Yes.
When they played Troy, when they played Appy State, when they played JMU, they gave up buco points, 40, 50 points. Boise State's offense is going to be just as good as those offenses were last year. I think they will be scoring plenty of points. Anytime a Mountain West team's going south, you're going to hear me say this a couple times, you do get a little worried about that, temperatures and all that kind of stuff. Boise has high aspirations. I don't think the heat's going to be an issue here in this game for Boise. And so anyway, I got to take Boise. And I mean, honestly, I think this is easy 2 to 3 touchdowns for them. I don't want to get too high. I'm not locking it. But I really like Boise in this game.
Yeah, I like them as well. I like them about 2 touchdowns. And when I look at Boise's roster, honestly, they compare favorably to a mid-level Big Ten team, definitely a mid-level ACC Big 12 team. I think they're a lot more talented than Georgia Southern. So I like them by 2 touchdowns all day. And I think I am a little surprised you didn't lock the team. You didn't lock this game. But I know there's been, like last year, I think Boise maybe didn't start as fast in some of these outer conference games. And I know you said before, they're traveling down to the heat, going down to Georgia. So I'm kind of surprised, but I'm kind of not.
I'm not locking it for several reasons. One of them is, if this was at Boise and the line's 12.5, ice cold lock, no doubt about it. But the fact that they're traveling south to Georgia Southern, there's just too much here to like about Boise. To not. I think this is a 2 to 3 touchdown win. So 14 to 21 points, which maybe leads you to believe to an ice cold lock, but I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to pull that trigger. So another really big game, UNLV at Houston.
Yeah.
Temperature doesn't really matter. You're already in the freaking desert in Vegas. They're going to Houston. It's irrelevant. Going to be a close game. I think going to be a high scoring game. Give me some points. I'm taking, you won't agree probably, but I'm taking UNLV plus 2.5 points. I actually like UNLV to win this straight up, I'll be honest with you. The biggest part of this game, I think, is going to be the Rebels' defense going against the weaker Cougar offensive lines. I should say defensive line against the weaker Cougar offensive line. If the Rebels' D-line can get into the backfield, disrupt the quarterback, because the Cougs do have a good quarterback. Yeah. But if he doesn't have time to throw, who freaking cares? The line of the Rebels could easily win this game for them. Houston does, like as I said, has the better QB situation, returning quarterback. the new quarterback for the Rebels, although I've heard really good things about Sluka. He clearly has the past history that shows that he knows how to throw the football. I think this should be a great game, but I am taking the points with UNLV. I like them to win it straight up. And for Chris, we talked about an over-under, and I don't have a slide for this for the live show, but I love the over in this game. 54.5 points. I like both teams to score big points, probably 30, upper 20s to 30-ish points each. That gets you to 60 to 65 points. I love the over 54.5 to be UNLV at Houston, and I'm going to ice cold lock it.
Ooh.
Yep, ice cold lock and over, just for Chris.
Okay.
UNLV at Houston, 54.5. Sorry I don't have a slide. I got really busy at work.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky I got all the slides done.
Hey, it's whenever you can throw an extra pick, an extra ice cold lock. I mean, that's a win for everybody.
It's a win for everybody.
Yeah.
Ice cold lock, 54.5. All right, moving on. Nevada versus Troy. So this is a very interesting game for me, Steve. Very interesting game because I had Nevada at the bottom of the Mountain West. I actually am still on Troy, although they did lose their quarterback. They lost their running back superstars. But I actually picked them to be over wins of 6.5. So early on, I'm like, this is a win for Troy. This is a win for Troy. After last week's game with Nevada, I'm going, that's a decent team.
Yeah.
That's a better team than we thought they were going to be. And it's one game. SMU didn't show up well at all in the first half. Again, I watched every game last week. I watched the FSU game. I watched the New Mexico game. It was great because I had 3 Mountain West teams.
Yes.
New Mexico game, I watched the Nevada game. I even watched the first half of the Hawaii game, and I'll get to that here in a little bit about the Warriors, Rainbow Warriors. But the Nevada game, they were impressive. Their defense was impressive, and their quarterback was impressive. And against an SMU team that I was really high on.
Yep.
I'm not as high on them right now because of that freaking game. And some of that was Nevada. Some of that I just think SMU looked like shit.
Yeah, it's early in the season. Yeah.
So I'm taking the Wolfpack, getting the points, plus 9.5. That's a lot of points for a game that I think could maybe go either way, especially after last week and seeing Nevada. And with Troy losing a lot of the offense that they had, give me the 9.5 points here. I'm taking the Wolfpack with the points.
I have a couple thoughts on Nevada. I don't have any thoughts on Troy. But I have a couple thoughts on Nevada. I saw about 70% of this game. I really liked their offense. I like their quarterback play, and I think they may have found something special. This combination of this coach with the quarterback. Normally I don't necessarily care about watching Nevada games. I'm the Big Ten guy.
Yeah.
I like some Mountain West, but Nevada's not usually one of them. But I'm going to be watching their games this year because I want to see how this quarterback progresses. With this coach, I think that they may have found a good combination there.
Well, and Choate has proven himself in FCS at Montana State, and what he was able to grow that program. He obviously was at Texas right before taking this job. I think they've got a really solid coach there. Now, I was going to give him a year just to get things figured out.
Right.
But like you say, if you get a quarterback and coach matchup, it just melds that quickly. Special things can happen with a team. It's a 1-game sample size, but I was very impressed with that quarterback. Lewis, I think is his name. I should say his name. Pretty sure it's Lewis. And we're getting a lot of UNLV love in the chat here, Steve. A lot of UNLV love. And Houston is they're gonna be. I mean, I think they're picked to finish last or something in the Big 12.
I like UNLV to beat Houston. I don't think Houston is a good team. I think their defense is atrocious. For me with UNLV,
that's why you go over.
Yes, exactly. For me with UNLV, my big question is: are they on that same level with Boise, who I think is top 2 or 3 G5 team in the country? And I think Fresno may be there with them. I'm not convinced and sold that UNLV is in that same tier, but I know a lot of West Coast, Mountain West fans and West Coast football fans do think that they are.
I'm going to tell you, Steve. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. I was done. So
UNLV's defense this year is going to be better than UNLV's defense last year.
Could be.
All around. Secondary, line.
Yeah.
I would say I'll be shocked if their defense isn't even better than last year. And I'm really anxious to see Sluka play.
Well, that's the
wing it, because I've heard, we're on the East Coast. I can't go to these practices. So I rely on beat writers. I rely on people that actually go and see this. But I've heard he's got the arm to do it.
So, and that's the biggest X factor because
Yeah.
for me, Maeva last year was just, he was so dynamic. I think, one of the top 2 or 3 players in the Mountain West last year.
Yeah.
He was their offense, made their offense go. I don't see it yet, but I don't really know much about that quarterback.
I understand. So for any of the Beavs and Cougs fans, I know I teased, we're going to be getting to some of that information at the end of this episode. I'm also going to be picking the Beavs and the Cougs at the end of my picks. I know we've got squeezed money on right now.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be getting to those guys here. But the next 2 I have are the teams that you picked.
Okay.
Or the games that you picked. Fresno versus Michigan in the Big House. Mm-hmm. I don't have much more to say. I am with you on the Bulldogs at plus 20.5. I wish it was still at 21.5. Yeah. I would have loved the 3 touchdowns here, but I'm still going to take the points with them. It's pretty much the same reasons. You can hear what we talk about tomorrow in our preview episode. That'll drop on Thursday. And remember, last year, Michigan lost to UNLV by 28 points in the Big House. Last year. UNLV.
Who?
Michigan.
Okay.
Not lost to.
Yes.
Beat UNLV.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, not lost to. I'm like, you're catching me on something.
Yes.
Yeah. They beat UNLV by 28 points. And that was a game Brumfeld played most of the game.
Yes.
Maeva didn't play a lot of that game. And he really kind of rejuvenized that offense last year. And
again, where Michigan started slow early in the season.
Yes. So, I'm parlaying a lot of that into this. So I'm with you on the 20.5 for the Bulldogs. Where I'm going to disagree with you is the UCLA versus Hawaii game. I am taking UCLA at minus 14.5. And here's why. When John, I apologize. It's not that I'm slurring.
Show him the beer status.
Sugar.
When his beer mug gets ahead of the graphic, that's when we have problems, John.
Waitress. Okay. I should probably not drink beer if it's that obvious that John has to call me out. My bad. Can I have some of your H2O? No, I'm just kidding. All right, UCLA versus Hawaii. So, what the hell am I saying? Oh, minus 14.5 for UCLA. And here's why, Steve. First of all, as I said, I stayed up, and this is part of the reason I love the Mountain West.
Yeah.
I can stay up till 1:32 a.m. on the East Coast.
Drinking your beers, because you love beers.
Drinking my beers, watching football. And I'll tell you what, I was not impressed with Hawaii's offense. I was high on them, and I get it, it's a one-game sample size. They had... I wanted to go back and count how many possessions they had in the first quarter. I think they had 4 or 5 possessions in the first quarter. They scored 1 touchdown. They couldn't complete passes. They couldn't move the ball. And this is against, again, not to knock on them, this is against Delaware State.
One of the worst.
1 in 12 last year, or whatever the heck, 2 and 10, or whatever the hell they were last year. Like, what were they? I think they were in the luau too damn long the night before. They were drinking with JY is the problem.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe how bad the offense looked. Not Shager. Shager's a phenomenal quarterback. Everything else looked like crap. They were tied with this team 14-14 in the third quarter, Steve.
I'm pretty sure I know who Delaware, those 2 wins. I think they got 2 wins last year. And I think it was Sister Mary, Mother of the Poor, and New Mexico Southwestern State.
I haven't heard you say the Sister Mary, Mother of the Poor for a while. I appreciate
it's week 1. I got to get back in.
Thank you. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, just so underwhelming. And I know you're down on UCLA, and they are a different team from last year, but nothing leads me to believe that a switch is going to be turned on by Hawaii here, and they're going to amazingly somehow score enough points to beat this spread. So I am on UCLA. I think they're going to be just fine. I hope the freaking Warriors well. I want them to do well. I thought they were going to do well. I can't bet them this week. I just can't do it.
I think these picks are a tale of you're focused on the Mountain West. I'm focused on the Big Ten. So I'm crapping on UCLA, and you're crapping on Hawaii, and it's just which one's going to pile up more crap on them? I don't know.
Okay, so we got UCLA by 28. I think that could absolutely be. I was not impressed with the Rainbows Warriors offense last week against the easiest team they're going to play all freaking season. 14-14, Steve. I'm still on it. One of the scores was a freaking punt return.
Yeah.
The damn offense only scored 1 touchdown in 3 quarters.
Sister Mary, Mother of the Poor scored more points than 14.
Let me move on. I apologize, Rainbow fans, but Wake the hell up. All right, Robert Morris versus Utah State. Robert Morris. How do you find information on freaking Robert Morris? So I'm taking Utah State. As I said, really strong offense. Taking them at minus 31.5. They should score plenty of points. I see some questions on Petrus, but Anderson, before he was let go, was very high on Petrus. Thought he could be an NFL quarterback. Yeah. And a lot of what I saw was they think he will fit much better in a Utah State kind of run and gun, open, let the quarterback do his thing offense than what he did in a Iowa, we can't even complete a pass offense. Time will tell. I will put my money on what Anderson thinks he saw in Petrus at the time. He was able to coach Petrus over the spring and the summer until he was let go. Anderson is a great quarterback coach. He's really good at telling, figuring out where talent's at. I mean, he let his 2 starters go last year to bring in new starters. So, of course, they think he's going to be better. So, I've got to go here. The Aggies D is going to be better than last year. 31.5 versus Robert Morris. Give me the Aggies here, Steve.
Chris just shows a poo emoji, and Josh is saying we have the wrong graphic up.
I have no idea. Maybe I ordered them wrong. My apologies. Yeah. So, anyway, it's Utah State at minus 31.5. We're going to move on to New Mexico versus Arizona. I took this many a week ago. I had it at 30.5, so I'm going to take my pick from back then because that's when I took it. It's moved to 31.5, so not a whole lot of movement here, but I'm still taking Arizona here at 30.5. Yes, New Mexico had a great start last week. They got that scoop and score. Everything looked good for them, and the headlines were, oh, they crapped the bed at the end because they did. I'm telling you, I watched the game. Montana State was the better team. The luck was with the Lobos. Yes. The luck of the game was with the Lobos. Again, I don't want to take anything away with him because Dampier actually played a really good game. Dampier did really well. I was impressed with him. But it wasn't as close as what people think it was going to be. Arizona returns their breakout QB. Is it Fifita? Fifita.
Yes.
I think it is. Their number 1 wide receiver, McMillan. I mean, their offense is just going to go crazy on New Mexico. What are people saying in the chats? You're laughing.
John saying the guy in the booth is drunk too. What you can't see is our producer. He's got 2 of these things just double fisted back here, trying to mash the keyboard at the same time. So
yeah. So anyway, I already took Arizona. I'm sticking with Arizona. I have them at 30.5. Take them at 31.5. I just don't see the Lobos scoring a whole lot in this game whatsoever. And you can say Arizona's going to take a step back, but they still have a pretty darn good offense.
That the Lobos game, it was Montana State they were playing, right? Montana State.
Yeah.
Lobos. So I looked at that game at one point where Lobos, I think, were up by 2 touchdowns, and Montana State was averaging 10 yards a carry and had like 378 yards rushing. Oh. I'm like, how is it possible to have these stats and the other team is winning?
I'm telling you, the luck was with, and it sounds mean to say this, but the luck was with the Lobos in this game. And they did look good in the beginning, but it's going to be a rough season for them. I'm glad they had a good close game, as it should have been. It's going to be a rough season, and Arizona is not a team you want to mess with.
I like Clint here. Clint's got a great one. He calls them the Nobos.
The Nobos, yeah. They're going to struggle for that. They've got a good coach here. Give him some time. And like I said, Dampier was impressive. He was an impressive quarterback, dual threat. He could throw the ball really well. So, all right, let's get to my last game with the Mountain West. The Wyoming Cowboys heading south to Arizona. I have already taken the Pokes at plus 7.5. It was down to 6.5 for a while. Today it has moved back up to 7.5. So you can get them with a touchdown, for crying out loud. It's supposed to be like 107 degrees down there. I'm glad I don't have to play in that heat. And honestly, that's the only thing that, in my opinion, will not make the Cowboys cover this line. And quite frankly, win the game straight up. And because I think they're going to win the game straight up, Steve, this is my ice cold lock for a spread. Wyoming Cowboys, ice cold lock.
All right.
You got to
do it.
I'm super confident. Super confident.
What's the line again?
7.5.
Oh yeah, okay.
They're getting 7.5.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I remember when I took that a few weeks ago. You're like, wow, I'm surprised they're getting 7.5. Yeah, they're getting a touchdown.
Yeah.
But and I think a lot of the uncertainty is around the headlines, new head coach, new quarterback. Yeah, but I don't want to go through all this again. The head coach has been there for forever, Sawvel. He knows what's going on. It's a change, but it's not a change, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And the quarterback Svoboda is a special talent. He's going to make mistakes, but he's going to make some amazing plays at the same time. And they bring back almost everybody else. Arizona State's rushing defense will not be very good. And yes, the Pokes don't have Whaley due to an early injury here, that they're going to get him back here soon, so they won't have him. But I'll tell you what, they got a strong room. They got that transfer in James from UNC. Yep. Scott's back. Don't worry about the running game. They're going to be able to run. I like the Wyoming Cowboys straight up. If you want a money line pick,
that could be
throw some money on the Pokes money line, but I'm ICLing Ice Cold Lockin' plus 7.5.
I'll be honest, I don't think Vegas puts really any time into Wyoming. I think because every year they're just like, they pick them at 6.5 wins. It's just Wyoming. I don't think they really look at the roster, at the schedule, any of that stuff for whatever reason. And so I think just like last year, Vegas is underestimating Wyoming. And then my second point, and I've already talked about this on other shows that we've done. To me, I think Svoboda could be the most interesting player in the Mountain West this year. He could be this year's Maeva. And so
absolutely,
people need to be watching out for him. And he might be this might be the game right away at the beginning where people see him and who is this guy?
Right.
And now he's got everyone's attention.
It could happen. We've got a lot of love coming from the chat here. Cowboy up. Letterbuck from Powder River. Good to have you here, Powder River. Wyoming by 14. A lot of straight up people here as well. I like them straight up. And as I said, I mean, this is all four of these first games for the Cowboys. I mean, they could go 4-0 against a solid out-of-conference lineup here.
Right.
And make a good name for themselves and make a good name for the Mountain West. As everybody knows, I'm a Mountain West champion, and I want to see these teams do well against out-of-conference folks.
It could set them up great for going into league play where everybody's focused on Boise, Fresno, UNLV.
Yeah.
Wyoming could be the dark horse, so to speak.
Not here.
Yep.
They're not a dark horse on the Big Mountain. All right, so let's get to the Beavs and the Cougs, okay? We're going to start with the Cougs. Portland State versus Washington State. The line is 28.5. I'm going to take the Cougs here. I'd love it under that 4 touchdowns, one point less at 27.5. But, I like what the Cougs are bringing back. Yes, they lost Cam Ward, but I like everything else that they have going. They didn't really lose their whole team like some people think they did. That didn't happen. Portland State doesn't have a great team. So 2 things here I just want to say, and you're going to hear me say these, both of these about Wazoo and Oregon State. I think overall, Vegas is probably underestimating what these teams are going to be this year because of the turnover that they had. Although 28.5 is a sizable spread, I think Vegas is going to underestimate them here early on at least. And I also think the Cougs and the Beavs are going to want to show the world, the nation, the FBS, that we're still here and we're still really damn good. So, would they have run the score up in the past? Maybe not. But I think they want to bring attention to themselves, and anything they can do, beating a team by 50 points. I'm not saying that's going to happen this weekend, but really taking 2 teams, make a statement. They're absolutely going to want to do that, and they need to get national attention. That's what they want. So I've got to take Washington State, and I'm going to do the same thing here for Oregon State. So Idaho State versus Oregon State, the line is 27.5. I'm taking the Beavs again at minus 27.5. I like it being under the 4 touchdowns. And everything I just said about Wazoo, I'm going to say about Oregon State. They want to make a national statement. They want to make headlines. They're being underestimated. The only thing I would say with Oregon State here is that they have had a lot more turnover. We thought the running back Martinez was going to stick around. He originally said he was. And then in that second window, he left. And he's an absolute beast of a talent. But they still are a solid FBS school, for crying out loud, against an Idaho State. And I like this one even more because it's under the 4 touchdowns. I just think the intangibles here all lead me to the Pac schools doing well. And I'm taking them both, Steve.
I like it.
So,
Beaver believer. Built.
Cougar Chaser.
Cougar Chaser. Built, not bought.
Yeah. All right, Bill Bond, that's right. Okay, so the last one I have an out of conference, and it's one that I picked a while back.
Okay.
And it is the TCU versus Stanford game. The line right now is 9.5, but I took it at 8.5. I like this line. I think TCU is underrated this year. Yes, Stanford has a good team. It's going to be a good close game, but I like TCU here at 10 to 14 points, maybe a 2-touchdown winner here. So I had taken TCU a little while back. I think they want to make a statement here. I think they want a big win. They have big aspirations. We all know what happened 2 years ago. Awesome season. Last season, obviously, had a letdown. I think they rebound back up to where they were 2 years ago here. I'm not saying it's going to be the exact same, but I think they're closer to that team. So I'm going to go TCU. I think the line's closer because of the TCU team last year. I like them this year. So I took it out, and we'll do that every so often for new peeps. Well, I especially like picking group of 5 teams. I know this isn't a group of 5 game. I like finding some group of 5 lines that I really like, specifically out of either the American or the Sun Belt. So you're hearing me talk about some of them. But here I got TCU 8.5 over Stanford.
Love it.
Okay. So that's our picks. And I think we have overall mostly agreement with everything. The one that we disagree on here, the Hawaii UCLA, I think is going to be fairly interesting.
Yeah.
But you never really know. I always say traveling to Hawaii is always it can be a little. Although hell, look at Delaware State. They missed their plane. They had to do all this. They had to do all that, and they did just fine.
Yep.
So
I think it's another one that I don't know if we totally disagreed on the game, but I think we disagree on the program. That LSU and USC game, I think, is huge. I think both of those teams are possibly on the outside looking in their conferences for a playoff spot, and one of them getting the win there could be huge for them.
Yes.
If they're a third or fourth place team come the end of the season, a win in that game could be huge for their chances of getting in the playoff.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to talk about, I want to hear from some of our viewers. I know we've got a lot of great commenters on here. We've got John. Welcome back, Stephen, Clint, and a whole bunch of people. I won't scroll back up. But we just released a video today about the Pac and the Mountain West scheduling agreement for 2025. I don't think that's probably going to get extended for the reasons I put out in that video. Ironically enough, we did that video last night, and then the Barnes article came out at some point, and both of us did not see that until after we recorded that video. Otherwise, we would have referenced it probably in that video. But I think it's probably pretty clear at this point, an extension's unlikely. But I also want to talk about here a little bit. I think, and we talked about it in some of the comments to that video, you could start to see more of a diverging path between Oregon State and Washington State here. I'm not going to say that's going to happen for the 25 football season, but remember, Wazoo's already joined as an affiliate member to the Mountain West for baseball and women's swimming, where Oregon State, they have those national aspirations, so they went independent. They want to push for that national attention. So you've started to see a little bit of that break. And for the WCC, where they went for most of their other sports, that is a 2-year agreement. So they're at least going to be combined there. I wouldn't be too surprised to see Oregon State and Washington State maybe start to diverge here a little bit with their football schedules. I don't know if it has to be an all or nothing with the Pac necessarily. What are your thoughts on that, Steve?
I don't see it.
You don't see it?
No, I think those other sports, they're very unique. Olympic sports, baseball, very unique situation. I think they're tied at the hip for football. And I agree with you. The timing for this particular, an extension of the deal the way it is right now, doesn't seem like, we only have, 3-4 days left.
Yeah.
But I think we are likely to have some kind of an agreement, and they may even still call it an extension, because if they both say, hey, we want to modify the deal a bit for another year, they may still call it an extension. So I think I'm leaning the other way. I think, again, I'm really looking forward to how the games are played this year. I think
let's not get ahead of ourselves, right?
I think all parties are going to love how it works out. And I do think the remaining two in the Pac, they're going to look at other options. But I think reality is going to set in between now and January, February timeframe that their options are rather limited if they want to get into a Power Four, and that honestly, I think the Mountain West is the best situation for them. I think it's also beneficial to the Mountain West. I think it's beneficial to both sides. So I appreciate you're really digging into this. You're doing the research. You're on top of it. But as an outsider, a little more of an outsider perspective, I'm just like, it's much to do about nothing. I still see them all coming together at the end.
Okay, well, we'll find out. I mean, I think it certainly was clear that, at least from the Barnes interview, we're going to be hearing something in the next several weeks, or at least from Oregon State, if not the Pac, in the next several weeks, which then leads me to believe that he pretty much just told you an exact extension of the agreement is not going to happen, because otherwise he'd have been like, you're going to hear it in the next couple of days. It's going to be the next couple of weeks. But we'll see what happens here. We like to report on facts, and I feel like that episode was more of why might it not work. And I just wanted to lay some of that stuff out. So I see Steven saying, I believe Oregon State, Washington State will stay together as a tag team, and they'll work with the Mountain West. That's the most likely scenario, and that kind of was the conclusion of yesterday's video, at least for 25. Bill agrees with that. John agrees with that for the next year. And then Clint says that money will run out by end of year 24. There's definitely more to come.
I do want to say, if you haven't watched that video yet, JY does a fantastic job of really digging into the details of the agreement and all of the facts around the agreement to show some reasons why they may not extend the deal as it stands. Both sides may want to change some things. So even though I still think they all ultimately come back together, I think that episode did a really good job. You should check it out. JY did a fantastic job of researching and just presenting, and not in an adversarial manner in any way, just showing the details and why both sides may want to make some changes.
Yes, and Kevin and Bill, that college football guy, make two really good points. So Kevin, there was another comment, and maybe it was you. I don't remember all the commenters' names that say anything, but there was a comment on that video here today that mentioned the Oregon State athletic budget being a lot bigger, and do they want to try to sustain that level of budget? And if they do, the Mountain West isn't going to be able to do that for them. So there was another commenter saying kind of the same thing, the difference between athletic budgets, and that can play a role as time goes on as well. And then that college football guy, Bill, says, and this is spot on, Oregon State has been a lot louder in terms of wanting to get into a power conference, where Washington State is talking much more of a reserved approach. I think that's spot on. Oregon State hasn't said as much, but when they do, I find it to be at a different level than where especially Schultz has been at with partnership, regionality. That's coming from Schultz. That's not really coming from Barnes and Murphy. So that's a great comment from Bill.
I think all of those are great comments, and Kevin pointing out about the athletic budget is a huge thing. And what I will say is that's how it has been. We are at a transformational point in college football with the House settlement. I've already seen quotes out of the Ohio State athletic department, who is the number one revenue producer of any athletic department in the entire country, where they're already talking about, with revenue sharing, having to back off other programs, Olympic sport programs, non-revenue sports. There is an adjustment period coming, and that's another thing with the timing with Oregon State and Washington State as they look for a Power Four home. We're in a time frame where everything is changing so much. That we haven't even finalized the House settlement, but that revenue sharing is going to cause major changes. There's so many major changes going on that, I mean, even rich programs in the Big Ten and the SEC may be drawing back and not being able to afford some of those non-revenue sports, those Olympic sports. So I get it. Oregon State has had that higher budget. But no matter where they land, like even in the Big 12 and the ACC, I can tell you, we talked about this in another episode, there is an ACC school right now that basically is afraid they're going to go bankrupt, their athletic department, because if they don't make more revenue, And I think that's kind of widespread in both the ACC and the Big 12. Big 12 is looking for, I think, 20 million a team or more, and they may not get that from Fox. So I think there's going to be major adjustments nationally to the other teams and the landing spots that they want to go. So long story short, Oregon State may not be able to have that big, massive athletic budget, whether they go to the Big 12, whether they go to the ACC, whether they go to the Mountain West or stay independent or whatever. That just might not be an option going forward.
Yeah, and Rumbling is back. I know he made a comment on that video as well. And I agree with the comment made by Barnes. So Rumbling says, yeah, the Oregon State AD made it sound like they are finalizing someone else or somewhere else. And I would say, you know, his comment, because there was a specific question about the Mountain West, and his comment I saw in the quote, I didn't listen to anything, I was reading articles. But when they asked him about the Mountain West, his comment was, to be determined, that's a strong option. And I read that, again, we talked about me being Mr. Negative and you were positive, but I read that as he's saying it's a strong option because he doesn't want to make waves with the Mountain West. And while it's a strong option, they have another option. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's strong, but we want stronger. You know what I mean? That's the way I read it. I didn't hear his tone. I didn't hear how he said it. But I read it the same way Rumbling read it, where it was like, yeah, he's not going to upset the Mountain West, but that's not the option that they want.
I think that's kind of a pessimistic way to look at it.
That's me.
I know. But if you just take it on face value, to me, he's saying it's a strong option, but he's not ready to commit yet. They're not ready to sign the deal. And so to me, it sounds like they're looking at other options.
I could be.
Mountain West is a strong option, but they're not sure they want to sign the dotted line. Just like when you're out there shopping for a car or whatever, you may have a car you really like, it's at a good deal, but you want to look at a few other cars at a couple other places just in case. So
it's almost like they're he's waiting on an answer from, I'll just call it what it is, the Big 12 or the ACC.
Could be.
Or anybody else. They're waiting on an answer. And Plan B, like everybody keeps saying, Plan B is the Mountain West.
Right.
You know, and I got to stop there because I'll start getting a little angry about it.
What have we talked about so many times is coming back to reality. I mean, they're looking for spots in the ACC and the Big 10. Big 12. Big 12 right now is struggling, if you read the reports, to get the money they're looking for from Fox. ACC has no idea if their contract is going to go forward after January or February. So the spots that they're looking at as potential landing spots are having troubles of their own. So
yeah, good point. All right, well, hey, there's the link. Thank you, producer. He stuck it in there. If you guys haven't already seen it, I know most of the people that are on are good old mountain dwellers, and they've either already watched it or they're going to watch it right after this. But anyway, hey, make sure you give this one a like. I appreciate Clinton reminding people, like the video. We forget to do that stuff because we're so excited about the picks.
Clint's always got our back.
He's got us. This got long because we had 19 that you did. We had, 15? I did 15 for me. And, it gets long after a while. But as we get into week 5 and 6 and we have games that are all conference games, we have a lot less picks to go. So we got a little long tonight. We appreciate all you guys for sticking around. Anything you want to say, Steve?
Built, not bought.
Built, not bought. Hey, with that, we thank you guys for watching. Give it a like. You're all subscribed already. I don't have to do that. I'm just used to doing it. We'll see you guys next time on the Big Mountain.